Okay, I'm gonna model this first one here. Take some questions. So those of you in class, just kind of follow along the best you can. And this will be a resource to go back to if you need help. So the drawings. And you should have already started your digital engineering notebook for this project. Um, make a copy. This video will be ready in a second. So finalizing now. Um, so the drawings. Let's go check those out. Oops, already opened. This first part is fairly tricky. Uh, so I'll start with this one. The other ones are a little bit easier. This one's got some. Um, it's all in this corner. You can't just do a chamfer there. You actually have to loft that off. So first thing I'm going to do is draw kind of this outside main outline, kind of almost as if I was viewing it from that back. All right. So this shape. So it's a circle of radius 1 inch. That means it's a diameter of 2 inches. It's a length of 4 inches and a height of 2 inches. So let's draw that shape first. All right, so I'm going to start a sketch. I guess I'm going to start it on this plane so it's kind of looks like what we did there. I'm going to start with I guess I'll start with a rectangle. Said it was 4 inches wide. You can type in a 4, then you hit tab and make that 2 inches, then hit enter, and it makes that rectangle. Now let me look back at the drawing for a second. 4 inches to the center of the circle. You see that? So then it's another inch out to that edge. So the total width of this thing is going to end up being 5 inches. So now I got to make a circle on this side. So I'm going to select circle, and it'll snap to the middle of this. And what's kind of interesting here, you really just have to make it go all the way up to the top. All right, and you can't really dimension it. You can dimension it, but it's going to be, you can't change it because I snapped it to the vertical dimension there to 2 inches. So that circle is going to have a diameter of 2 inches no matter what because I snapped it to that. And if that diameter is 2 inches, that means from the center to this side it's going to be 1 inch. So 1 inch plus 4 inch gives us that total width. Now, the next thing here is to trim off that part of the circle. So trim, one of those things you learned in that last project. See, it wants me to remove that dimension. I think it's this one it wants me to remove, that 2 inches maybe. Let's see. Nope. Must be no circle dimension. It must want me to delete. So I'll trim that off now. Huh. Must be this dimension? Weird. We can do it, we can dimension it differently. Let's see. Right now? Yeah, there we go. Now, you want to make sure you're not going to lose that dimension. You can click here and dimension it that way and make sure it stays 4 inches. Hit finish sketch. Hit the home button to kind of zoom myself out a bit. Now, how thick is this thing? It's 2 inches thick. All right, cool. So I'm going to extrude this. It doesn't matter which direction you go here. Sometimes it's easier if you just leave it the way the computer wants it to do it. 2 inches, it's going to create it a new solid. It's always a new solid the first extrusion you do. Good to go. All right. Now, what next? I think I'm going to make the hole next. Or I could cut out that little cut in the top next. Either way will be good. I guess I'll cut that slot out of the top. So I start a new sketch on that top surface. So you don't need to start sketches on work planes. You can start sketches on any flat surface in your model, right? So I'm going to start a sketch on that top part in this slot. They give me the width of it from the front here is 2.5 inches. And that's a ½ inch from either side. And then if you do the math, that must mean it's an inch thick, right? So I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now, I'm going to start it over here. It'll snap to the geometry here which is kind of nice. Or you can do the project geometry. If you have trouble dimensioning, so let me just go ahead and draw this rectangle. I'm just drawing a rough rectangle, right? I'm not even going to dimension it yet. I just draw the rectangle, and then I start dimensioning. So it's got to be, what do we say, it's got to be 2.5 from that face. All right, so that's 2.5. All right, then each side of it's got to be a half inch there. Dimension, click, click, 0.5 inches there. I like using the number pad, right? You hit num lock, it brings up the number pad. So that rectangle here, notice these lines turned yellow. That's because I dimensioned to them, and it essentially did project that geometry. It brought those lines into this sketch. All right, so I'm gonna hit finish sketch. I'm gonna do an extrude, and I gotta select that surface. Now obviously I don't wanna add that material. I wanna make it a cut extrusion. And the distance of 2 inches is gonna go all the way through. So you want to make sure it cuts all the way through that. Now, you can always, if you want to make sure something cuts all the way through, you can change these extents. You can go all, you can go 2. So if you do all, it just cuts any material in the model that intersects. So you hit OK. All right. Now I'm going to cut the hole in it. The hole, well, I'm going to start a sketch on that front face. Anytime you see a circle cut out like this, you want to make it a hole. You don't want to draw it a circle and extrude it through. It has the same result in the end, but it's better to make things holes because of the way it makes the mechanical drawing. We're not going to worry about the mechanical drawings right now. We're just going to 3D model the parts, and then we'll go back and learn about mechanical drawings. So I'm going to put a point at the center of this arc. Let's see if it'll find it. No, see that? It won't find it. So there's a few ways to deal with that. It's not snapping to the middle of that circular arc. You can project the geometry of that arc and look. So I hit project geometry and I click this shape. It brings now that curve into my drawing. So now I can put a point there. So project geometry, I'm using all the time. I love project geometry. It brings outlines of the thing you're building into the sketch that you're working in, so then you can use that to reference. You can actually do that, use those lines to extrude stuff too, if it's a closed surface. So I put a point there, finish sketch, I make a hole, it's going to automatically find that point. This is the last activity, this is the last thing I do. It needs to be a simple hole. No seed or anything, through wall, and then we just got to select the size. So it's kind of nice. The hole's nice because then you don't have to make a complicated sketch. You just throw a point in there. And so what's the diameter of that hole? It's a 1-inch hole. It says 2x. Well, what does that mean? It just means there's a hole on each side. So if you do through all, it's going to put a hole through all. It's going to go right through all of the stuff. And there it is. There's the hole. Now, time for the fun part, right? This corner and this thing. First thing you want to do is probably cut that edge down. And because it's symmetric, you can just do a chamfer there. All right? That other angle, there's no way to cut that way. All right? You could, I'll show you in a second. All right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chamfer this vertical edge, though. I'm going to cut it back. It says 1 inch, and this would have to be 1 inch too. So the chamfer is going to be a distance of 1 inch. Cool. Now, there's always a temptation when you get to this part to try to chamfer this edge, right? But look, it doesn't end up right. Kids always try to adjust this chamfer, right? The problem is they just try to kind of wing it and be like, okay, make it 0.8. Let's see how close we can get. Okay, that's 0.7. Oh, look, that looks really good, Harmon. I got it, right? But it's not. you zoom in, look, you got to be careful. It's not perfect, and the angle's not right. So there's a different way to do this. It's actually pretty darn easy once you kind of know how to do it. That's just like everything, right? A lot of things in life are easy once you know how to do them. This is one of those things. So you start a sketch on this face. All right. We're going to make a triangle in this corner. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to use that project geometry again. Project geometry, then I can bring this rectangle into this sketch, the outline of that rectangle into this sketch. Then all I have to do, because if you don't project the geometry, you can't snap to things and trace things. Then I just got to trace a triangle here. And look at it, snaps halfway, bam, bam. So I've got a triangle here now. Let me hit finish sketch so you can see what I'm doing. I am tracing this corner because I'm going to do a loft from this corner straight over to this corner and blast off that material. It's going to be a cut loft. All right. So actually, does it go down halfway here? I don't know, right? But it's 45 degrees. This angle here is 45 degrees, and so let's go back into sketch 4 and just make sure this angle is 45 degrees. So I hit dimension. It should be right because that's a right. This is all right. Oops. It's a right triangle and it's square, so that is going to be 45 degrees no matter what. Now I have to make a drawing on this face. Start a sketch on this face, and I'm going to project that geometry of this one, right? Now this triangle, there's nothing for me to snap to, so I guess I can snap halfway there, and then that top line I'm going to have to dimension. All right, so the dimension of that, I think it's going to be, oops. Now here's a trick. How do I dimension just that part of the line? You're going to have to find the points on the end and do it that way. Oh, look at that. I almost drew that perfectly. You see that, guys? Look at that. I just did it by 1 point, almost exactly 1 inch, but you want it to be exactly 1 inch. So there we go. So I drew that triangle up here. This dimension here is automatically going to be 1 inch. All right, because it snapped. This angle, 45, right? I don't really need to dimension that because, again, that's going to be, because it's a right triangle. Finish sketch. All right, so here we go. Loft time. Loft time. In class, I'm going to pause it for a second so I can, Mr. Roboto taught me how to do this. All right, answered a few questions in class. Now I'm just going to finish up that loft. So you hit loft. Then you got to select your sketches that you want to loft from. So when you loft, there's 2 steps to it. You click the sketch, and if there's multiple closed surfaces in a sketch, you have to click the sketch, then click the surface. Got the whole thing. All right, so this is a pain. This sketch, and I want to make sure I get just that surface. Oh, it's not finding it. Okay, so I got to go back into that sketch maybe. I don't know if it'll let me delete the projected lines. That's the trick. That's what I need to do. No, it's not letting me delete the projected lines. All right. So let me try starting with the other side first. Loft. I want that sketch. Try again. Loft. I want that sketch. I want that surface. See how that's turning just barely a little white? There we go. Then I want to click to add this sketch. I want only that surface though. Now this is the trick. I gotta zoom in and see if I can get it. So it's just this triangle. It's not doing what I want. No, got the whole thing. All right. Let me trace that one more time in that sketch. Sometimes this is something you can do. You can retrace what you made already. Finish sketch. Let's try lofting that again. See, it's not finding just that triangle. It's finding this whole thing and that. That's unfortunate. I'm going to have to figure that out. Oh, was that it? Just had it for a second. This is one of the most annoying things in all of Autodesk Inventor sometimes, trying to select a surface. Alright, I'm going to have to just get radical here. There we go. Let's see what we have here. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking the lines and deleting the projections. Trying to. Delete this dimension. Alright, let's see if that, by deleting that bottom one. Alright, there we go. So I had to delete those projections, which is annoying. You might not have that same problem. You need to make it a cut. It's not finding it. There we go. And that's how we cut that corner off. Alright, so that part's done. You'll probably need help with that loft. You might have to delete some lines. The project geometry is necessary, but it can be a pain. But anyhow, there it is, done.